If you've ever wondered why the first suggestion is when you're losing weight to get off the carbohydrate, then you probably don't know much about the effect of insulin, because insulin is one of the main reasons that we put on weight. Let me explain today. So what I want to talk to you about is how insulin actually causes you to put on weight, and in particular, what's a specific area that you put on weight when your insulin levels are elevated. So let's go through it today. All right, so let's start off with, so the first thing we need to understand is that insulin is all about energy utilization. So what are you going to do with that energy? So we convert glucose, which is up here, we convert this glucose into an energy source. And we've got 3 different energy sources we can convert it to. So about 50% is converted immediately into energy. So it's pushed straight into the cell, burnt immediately on the spot for us to use as energy. But that's only half of it. Then, if we haven't eaten for a period of time, the body starts releasing this substance known as glycogen, which is stored glucose. And this stored glucose primarily comes from the liver and eventually from muscle as well. But as we utilize it, we need to actually replenish it. So anywhere up to 10% is utilized to replenish glycogen stores within the liver and within the muscle, especially if you're doing exercise. Then the remaining 40 to 50% is stored as energy for future use. And this is basically energy where you haven't eaten for a long period of time. It could be a couple of hours, maybe even a day where you haven't eaten and you just need an energy supply. And the only source we have of that is fat. And most importantly, insulin converts to a form of fat known as triglyceride. The reason this is so important is triglyceride tends to get accumulated in one area in particular, and that is between your chest and your hips. So right through that middle section, that's when we really start having our fat stored when it comes to insulin function. The reason this is important because on your lab test, when you do lab tests for cardiovascular function with cholesterol, you'll also see a reading there for triglyceride. And that reading for triglyceride is directly proportionate to this pathway. So if we're seeing triglycerides starting to climb on those bloods, this can be a sure sign that your insulin levels are astray. So what can you do with it? Well, the obvious one to start with is reduce the carbohydrate and increase the fat in your diet, okay? So the reason we want to do that is if we're increasing the fat in the diet and reducing the carbohydrate, we'll reduce the amount of insulin that we're producing as well. So that might be the amount of carbohydrate, or otherwise just go to a slower form of digesting carbohydrate. In other words, a lower GI value. There are specific herbs that you can use. So things like berberine has been shown to have fantastic effect of reducing insulin resistance, as well as medicinal mushrooms such as chaga and cordyceps can also be quite beneficial for people who are having problems in this area. Minerals such as chromium, magnesium, and zinc can also help us utilize their energy source and control all those mechanisms to make sure that we have a good, healthy insulin metabolism and break our glucose down as we are meant to. So there's some key things we can do. So number 1, reduce the carbohydrate, reduce the glycemic index. Take supplements such as berberine, chaga, cordyceps. We'll make sure we get some good advice on those things. Everyone's a bit different with what you need. And minerals such as chromium, zinc, and magnesium are also really beneficial. So let's understand that the main reason we put on weight really is this accumulation of this pathway as we try and store energy. So let's look differently. As we're not trying to have fat around the waist, what we really have is an abundance of stored energy, and that's what we need to burn off. Anyway, guys, if you have any questions, please post them up below. If you want to know something specific, feel free to message me at any time. Always here, happy to help in any way, shape, or form. Otherwise, I'm Trev from SpineWise, and I'll see you in the next vid. Bye for now.